You open your bank account on a Tuesday morning, and for a second, you almost miss what just happened. Nothing. No panic, no sharp breath, no little hit of fear in your stomach, no mental math. The rent is gone. The insurance payment cleared. The credit card pulled automatically. Some subscription you forgot about took $12.99, like it had every month. And somehow, your body does not react. You are sitting at a small kitchen table with cold coffee beside you. Same hoodie, same apartment, same refrigerator humming too loudly in the corner. The number on the screen would not impress anyone online. Nobody would call it rich. Nobody would screenshot it. Nobody would write a post about it. But it protects you. And that is the first sign. Not that your life suddenly looks expensive. Not that people start treating you differently. Not that you feel powerful. The first sign is quieter than that. Money starts losing its ability to scare you. And the strange part is, nobody around you can see it. That is how quiet wealth usually begins. Not with a mansion, not with a black card, not with a garage full of cars, not with old friends asking what changed. Most of the time, it begins in a room nobody is filming. A Tuesday morning, a cleared bill, a cup of coffee going cold, a life that looks exactly the same from the outside. But inside, something has shifted. Mason Wells noticed it at 6:18 in the morning. He was standing barefoot in his kitchen, waiting for his old coffee maker to finish coughing out the last half cup. The counter was covered with ordinary things: a grocery receipt, a property tax envelope, a repair invoice for the Toyota, a stack of mail he kept meaning to open. Nothing about the scene looked wealthy. Nothing about Mason looked wealthy either. Black hoodie, old sweatpants, tired eyes, bare feet on cold tile. But when he opened his banking app, he did not flinch. That was new. For years, money had lived inside him like an alarm system. A bill came in, and his shoulders tightened. A card declined once at a gas station, and he remembered the heat in his face for months. A friend invited him to dinner, and before he answered, he calculated the menu, the tip, the gas, and what would still be left until Friday. He knew the distance between payday and embarrassment. He knew it exactly. He knew how much gas was in the tank. He knew which grocery store had the cheapest eggs. He knew which bills could wait 3 days without becoming dangerous. He knew one emergency could turn a normal month into a private disaster. You can live that way for so long that you stop calling it fear. You call it being responsible. You call it adulthood. You call it just how life works. But your body knows. Your body remembers every overdraft fee, every minimum payment, every time you checked your balance in a parking lot before walking into a store, every time you pretended you were choosing not to go, when really, the money had already chosen for you. Then one morning, the bills are still there. The world is still expensive. The car still needs work. Insurance still acts like it owns part of your paycheck. But the fear does not arrive with the same force. That is sign number 1. Bills stop feeling like emergencies. Not because bills disappear. They do not. Rent still comes. The mortgage still comes. Groceries still cost more than you think they should. The dentist still finds something. The car still makes a new sound the week you finally start to relax. But when you are quietly becoming wealthy, there is margin. And margin is not glamorous. Nobody claps for margin. Nobody brags about having enough cash to handle a broken appliance. But margin is one of the first real forms of wealth. It is the space between a problem and a disaster. It is the difference between saying, "That is annoying," and saying, "This ruins everything." Mason used to keep a folded paper in the top drawer of his kitchen. On it were the numbers: rent, electric, phone, gas, car payment, minimum payments, food. He wrote them in pencil because pencil felt safer. Numbers moved, fees appeared, something always changed. At the bottom of the page, he wrote what was left. Some months, the number looked almost cruel. $38, $17, once, -12. He remembered that one, -12. That was the month the refrigerator started leaking. Not breaking, just leaking. A quiet little puddle under the door. The kind of problem that does not look dramatic unless you are the person who cannot afford to fix it. He put a towel under it, then another towel. Then he watched repair videos at midnight with the sound low, as if the refrigerator could hear him. That was when he understood something he had never said out loud. Being broke is not only about not having money. Sometimes, it is about not having options. Quiet wealth begins when options start coming back. Small ones first. You can fix the refrigerator. You can replace the tire. You can pay the insurance premium and not think about it again. You can say yes to dinner without checking your balance in the restroom. Nobody notices, but your nervous system does. And that was the part nobody understood. Because from the outside, Mason's life looked almost the same. Same apartment, same Toyota, same grocery store, same black hoodie, same coffee maker making the same tired sounds every morning. If anything, he looked less successful than some of the people around him. His coworker Derek leased a new truck with heated seats and a payment that sounded like a second rent. His neighbor bought patio furniture that made the backyard look like a hotel. His cousin bought a watch and called it an investment, even though everyone knew he just liked saying the word investment. Mason did not judge them. That matters. Quiet wealth does not make you better than anyone. It just makes you harder to move. He still wanted things. Of course he did. He still noticed nice cars at stoplights. He still liked the feeling of walking into a restaurant and not worrying about the right side of the menu. He still knew what a better kitchen would look like. But the pull was different now. Less desperate, less personal, less like proof. That is sign number 2. Your life gets quieter, not louder. This is the opposite of what most people expect. People think money improving means life should become more visible. Better clothes, better vacations, better furniture, better photos, better evidence. But when you are quietly becoming wealthy, proof starts to feel expensive in a different way. It costs attention. It costs peace. It costs the freedom to move without being watched. There is a stage where every upgrade feels like evidence that your life is finally going somewhere. And that stage is understandable. If you grew up without much, a reliable car can feel like dignity. A better apartment can feel like oxygen. A dinner you do not have to calculate can feel like revenge. You are not wrong for wanting those things. But the trap does not announce itself. It does not begin with a terrible decision. It begins with a feeling. The feeling says, I deserve this. And sometimes you do. But then another feeling slips in behind it. I need people to see that I deserve this. That is where the leak begins. Every purchase makes sense by itself. The car, the phone, the couch, the trip, the nicer gym, the subscriptions. The apartment that is just a little more than you planned, but makes you feel less behind. Individually, each choice can be explained. Together, they build a life your paycheck can barely carry. The problem is not that you bought coffee. The problem is that your whole life became a subscription. Mason knew that feeling. After his first real promotion, he upgraded before he understood what he was trying to fix. New shoes, a better phone, a jacket that made him feel like the version of himself he wanted people to see, a mattress he financed because the sales guy made monthly payments sound harmless. None of it destroyed him. That was what made it dangerous. It all fit. Barely. And barely can look normal for years. Then one night, he sat at the kitchen table with the folded paper and realized something that stayed with him. He had upgraded the appearance of his life faster than the foundation of his life. The appearance had moved ahead. The foundation had not. So he made a decision that felt boring at the time. He stopped making his progress visible. Not forever. Not because he hated nice things. Not because he wanted to punish himself. Just long enough to see what would happen if the money stayed inside the system. No new car, no bigger apartment, no reward purchase every time life got hard. At first, it felt like deprivation. Then, it started to feel like privacy. And then, one day, it felt like power. That is when sign number 3 began. You start seeing systems instead of status. This one changes the way ordinary places look. A laundromat stops being just a laundromat. A storage facility stops being a row of orange doors. A vending machine stops being a box of chips in a hospital hallway. A parking lot stops being empty pavement. A small office building stops being tired carpet and flickering lights. You begin to see motion, rent, maintenance, insurance, tenants, routes, keys, invoices, OC payments, boring things, real things, things that keep moving after the excitement is gone. Most people walk past cash flow every day because it is not dressed like opportunity. It is dressed like someone in work boots carrying a clipboard. It is dressed like a woman counting quarters behind a folding counter. It is dressed like a property manager email at 7:04 in the morning. It is dressed like a repair invoice that annoys you, but does not destroy you. Mason first noticed it because of Doris. Doris ran the coin laundromat on Meridian and Fifth every Thursday morning from 7 to 3. At least, that was what Mason thought. She wore gray sneakers. She kept a ring of keys on a blue spiral bracelet. She taped handwritten notes to machines when they were out of order. She knew which dryer ran too hot. She knew which customer always left socks behind. She knew the soap dispenser was about to jam before it jammed. To Mason, she looked like the manager, maybe an employee, maybe someone helping family. Then one Thursday, he came in early because the washer in his apartment building had broken again. The laundromat smelled like detergent, warm fabric, and old tile. Doris was behind the counter with a paper cup of coffee. A man in a polo shirt came through the door holding a folder. He said, "The roof estimate came in lower than expected." Doris nodded. Not like an employee, like an owner. Mason did not ask anything, but he heard enough. Roof estimate, machine lease, utility bill, tenant space next door. Then the man said something about the rent roll. Rent roll. The phrase stayed with him. That night, with his clean clothes folded in a blue plastic basket, Mason sat at the kitchen table and searched boring words. Rent roll, net operating income, coin laundry route, triple net lease, storage unit occupancy. None of it felt exciting. That was exactly why he kept reading. Excitement had fooled him before. Excitement had sold him things. Boredom, strangely, started teaching him. He did not become wealthy because he found one secret business. That is not how it happened. There was no miracle, no viral idea, no sudden inheritance, no machine in the corner that changed everything overnight. There was only a change in attention. He started noticing who owned the places everyone else only used. That is sign number 4. Boring assets start looking beautiful. Not beautiful like luxury. Beautiful like a bridge. Beautiful like a door that opens every morning. Beautiful like something that works whether or not anyone admires it. Mason began taking walks after work. At first, not even for exercise, for observation. He noticed a small strip mall with a nail salon, a tax office, and a sandwich shop. He noticed the same 3 vans parked behind a plumbing business every morning. He noticed a storage facility near the highway that always had cars outside. He noticed vending machines in the hospital break room when his aunt had surgery. He noticed the apartment complex where the paint was fading. But every balcony had a chair. Chairs meant people. People meant rent. Rent meant someone owned the quiet middle of other people's lives. That thought made him uncomfortable, then curious, then serious. Ownership psychology does not always begin with greed. Sometimes it begins with a question. Why does everyone I know trade time, while a few people own the places where time gets traded? Mason did not quit his job. He did not announce a new identity. He did not start wearing suits. He did not post about assets. He kept working. He kept learning. He kept driving the old Toyota. He built cash slowly. He studied boring deals he did not buy. He made mistakes on paper before making them with money. He looked at numbers until the fantasy wore off. That part mattered. Because if something only looks good when you do not understand it, it is not a deal. It is a costume. Years passed like that. Quiet years. Years where nothing dramatic happened. Years where people thought Mason was standing still. But standing still from the outside is sometimes what building looks like on the inside. He had automatic transfers. A small emergency fund that became a larger one. A retirement account he stopped touching. A separate account for taxes. A separate account for repairs. A boring brokerage balance. Later, a small share in a local vending route with a man named Frank, who wore the same baseball jacket every winter and knew every maintenance closet in 3 counties. It did not make Mason rich. Not at first. It made him pay attention. The vending route was ugly in the way real cash flow can be ugly. Machines jammed. Card readers failed. A hospital changed its vendor policy. Someone unplugged a machine to charge their phone. The numbers were smaller than the dream and more complicated than the spreadsheet. But every month, Mason learned the same lesson. Assets are not magic. They are responsibility with a chance of freedom attached. And that chance belongs to people who can wait. That is sign number 5. You can wait longer than before. This might be the most invisible sign of all. Nobody praises waiting. Nobody notices patience. Nobody asks what brand of delayed gratification you drive. But as you quietly become wealthy, your sense of time changes. You stop needing every dollar to become a reward right away. You stop needing every hard day to be repaired by a purchase. You stop confusing urgency with opportunity. A sale is not always a chance. A hot investment is not always a door. A friend's success is not always a message about your failure. Waiting becomes less painful because you are no longer waiting from desperation. You are waiting from position. That difference is everything. Desperation says, I need this to work. Position says, I can survive if it does not. Mason learned that during a winter when everything seemed to break at once, the Toyota needed brakes. The vending route lost one location. His apartment building raised rent. And the market dropped enough that coworkers started talking like the world was ending. At lunch, Derek said, I'm pulling everything out. Mason stirred a paper cup of coffee and said nothing. Not because he knew the future. He did not. Not because he was smarter. He was not. He was simply not forced to react that day. That was new. A few years earlier, any one of those problems would have put him back at the kitchen table with the folded paper and the old fear. Now they were still problems, but they arrived inside a wider room. That is what wealth does before it looks like wealth. It widens the room. More space between stimulus and response. More space between fear and action. More space between what people think and what you choose. And then comes the strangest sign. Money becomes less interesting. Not unimportant. Never unimportant. Just less emotional. Less dramatic. Less tangled with who you think you are. That is sign number 6. Money becomes less visible, but more powerful. By the time Mason's financial life had really changed, almost nobody knew. There was no reveal, no party, no watch, no speech about discipline, no before and after photo. His life became quieter. Automatic transfers happened in the background. Property manager emails arrived before breakfast. Tax envelopes sat in a drawer. A portfolio summary came once a month, and sometimes he did not open it until the weekend. A small distribution hit the account from the vending route. A repair bill hit another account. Rent came in. Insurance went out. The system breathed. In, out, in, out. Not perfectly, never perfectly, but consistently enough that Mason no longer felt like every month was a test he might fail. That is not the wealth people usually sell online. It is not dramatic from the outside. It is not a Lamborghini outside a glass house. It is replacing an old refrigerator without spiraling. It is paying for your mother's medication without choosing which bill will be late. It is leaving a job that made you smaller because your life no longer collapses without that paycheck. It is silence at the kitchen table. It is sleeping through the night. It is choosing from values instead of panic. One Friday evening, Mason sat in a diner off the highway, the same place he used to go when he felt broke but wanted to feel normal. The waitress, Angela, still called him honey. The coffee still tasted burnt. The vinyl booth still had a split near the edge. Nothing had changed, except him. His phone buzzed on the table, a deposit notification. Not huge. Not life-changing by internet standards, but it came from something he owned. A small, boring piece of a system. No one in the diner knew. Angela refilled his coffee. A man at the counter complained about the price of eggs. A child dropped a crayon under the table. Outside, headlights moved across wet pavement. Mason looked at the notification once. Then he turned the phone face down. For a moment, he expected to feel triumph. He did not. He felt something quieter. Safety. Not complete safety. Life does not give that, but enough. Enough to breathe. Enough to think. Enough to not need the whole room to know. That is when he understood the real difference between looking rich and becoming wealthy. Looking rich asks for witnesses. Quiet wealth asks for nothing. It only changes what fear is allowed to do to you. And maybe that is the deepest sign of all. You stop needing money to become a performance. You stop needing every choice to prove you escaped. You stop measuring your life by how it looks from the sidewalk. You begin measuring it by how much of yourself you get to keep. Your time, your attention, your sleep, your ability to say no. Your ability to help without drowning. Your ability to sit in an ordinary diner, wearing an ordinary hoodie, drinking ordinary coffee, while some quiet system in the background keeps working. That is wealth before applause. That is freedom before luxury. That is the part nobody sees. And that is why, when you are quietly becoming wealthy, your life may not look bigger at first. It may look smaller, calmer, less impressive, less hungry. You may keep the old car. You may stop explaining yourself. You may become harder to sell to. You may start reading repair invoices with more interest than advertisements. You may walk past status and notice ownership. You may check your bank account and feel nothing dramatic at all. And one morning, that nothing will tell you everything. The money was never loud. That was the point.